Alright everyone, big in the news right now is a term that you've probably heard before, the term reboot, as in Nikkihaley needs to reboot her campaign. Joe Biden needs to reboot his campaign. They said this for some time, back in the day Rubio had to reboot his campaign. Hillary Clinton needed to reboot at the end. She tried it, but much like with her other computer-related failures, it didn't go over so well. Nikkihaley and Joe Biden can't reboot their campaigns, and here's why. In the general, things are very prolonged, so we're talking a span of months for things to be done. Making proposals, go to the debates, etc., campaigning. Joe Biden, therefore, at this juncture, we're halfway through February, we're marching into the general election, it's basically already begun, and Trump realizes this, that's why he trolls Nikkihaley and otherwise doesn't even mention her. That's not enough time for him to be able to reboot the economy, the U.S. border, and the half a dozen diplomatic failures of his administration. It's not enough time. There's not enough manpower to accomplish it. Even if the administration were smooth, even if they were competent, which apparently nobody in the goddamn administration is, none of these people have any capability of planning things and executing even the most basic of maneuvers politically. Even then, it would be a hard sell, whether they could reboot the campaign, suffering from so many problems at the moment. You can probably clear up one of them. Okay, we can stabilize the economy, or we can crack down on the border, or we can deal with these diplomatic crises, and then, of course, foreign dignitaries and heads of state are basically our political future is in their hands, and that's scary, so maybe we want to focus on the border or something. That would be if they were competent. Under an incompetent administration where Joe's out to lunch, Kamala is apparently on the reg now inebriated, dealing with the stress of her office having to mop up after Joe Biden's mess. Do you think that Blinken is with it? I don't. Blinken, he makes more verbal mistakes than Biden sometimes. Do you think a Buttigieg, is he in charge? No, it's just a cabal of stockholders and bankers and war pigs behind the scenes are calling 90% of the shots in the Biden White House. It's not Biden's White House. He's basically just a tenant there. He's in hospice. He's basically in assisted living at this point. Good luck to him, therefore rebooting. Nikkihaley's position is actually worse, though. South Carolina votes in less than 2 weeks now. That's at the end of this month. You don't have the time to make up a 30-point polling gap. Donald Trump, in the wake of winning in New Hampshire, shot ahead in the South Carolina polls. He gained about 10 points. He was riding already above 50, which would have given him that particular election, that particular primary result. He would have won. But now he's up 35 points against Haley. Now, under normal circumstances, okay, you're behind in a state. But at least you're in the double digits, right? You have a political pulse. The problem is it's her home state. So she does not have time to reboot. What the fuck are you supposed to do in 2 weeks' time to surmount that kind of lead? Nothing. You basically you pray that your opponent gets diagnosed with cancer or something like that. I hate to be morbid, but that's the only shot that Nikkihaley at this point would have. I don't think that she would even be nominated if Trump dropped dead of a heart attack today. Somebody else, I think, would show up and beat the shit out of her. Someone more competent than her. Her campaign's a goddamn wreck. Every time she comes out and makes a public statement, she makes an ass of herself. Sure, her likability is in the shitter, despite the fact that supposedly she polls so much better against Joe Biden. Again, the Kasich effect. Yeah, and the more people know about Nikki, the less people like her. Because, being a war pig when we're already in several proxy wars, that's not generally going to be popular. Ignoring the border crisis and outright stating to a Republican audience that you have to wine and dine and woo, saying, well, I don't like the term illegals. It sounds disrespectful. That didn't go over well now, did it? Losing your shit when you're there with Chris Sununu, who swore up and down you were going to win New Hampshire. You lost it by 13 points. And rambling about donors when queried about the fact that most of your money comes from, the cocksucker billionaire class. That didn't go over too well either. I'm trying to name one thing she's done right. I can give again, I'll go back to my pledge not to insult DeSantis or his supporters other than Max Nordau. That's perfectly fine. Because he dropped out. He saw the writing on the wall. I can name a few things that Ron DeSantis has done that were really great. Martha's Vineyard trolling will go down in history as one of the funniest things in modern U.S. politics, for example. People will be talking about that 50 years from now. But there's nothing for Nikkihaley. What campaign reboot? I keep seeing these fluff piece articles that they've got high hopes. What they really, really want is for Donald Trump to lose. The first step is to try to get him unnominated by blocking him with Nikkihaley. So they keep talking about how she needs to reboot her campaign. But there's no reboot possible. There's not enough time. You would have had to reboot your campaign at least a month ago or something like that. That would have been the time to reboot it. Well, I thought that she had Nikkihaley momentum. She was supposed to cruise to a second place finish in Iowa, rise up a little, clinch New Hampshire, go into her home state, ignoring Nevada where you get the primary and the caucus at the same time. There was never any possibility there. Go into her home state and at least win. Even if it's by a slim margin, at least win. Okay, you get 2 of the starting states. You've got about as many delegates as Trump, a little bit less because of Nevada, but you're clearly viable. Okay, then you go on to Super Tuesday and you clench your teeth and you pray real hard. But she didn't do that. She hasn't won a thing. She's lost everything. Now because she's going to lose her political career. There's no coming back for Nikkihaley. By the way, unless Trump is crazy enough to put her in the cabinet, and thankfully I think he's learned his lesson on some of his hiring problems from the first time around. I have hope. I'm optimistic about that admittedly big problem with his first term as commander-in-chief. Unless that happens, she's toast. She can write a memoir and say, here's the story of the also-ran. America just wasn't ready for a female president. And you know that that'll be her messaging. America wasn't ready for a vagina-ed president, and that's why I lost. All the misogynists kept voting for Evil Orange Man, the rapist. You know that'll be the fucking forward for her book. And that's probably what she'll do. She'll mop up some millions of dollars. She'll sell a bunch of copies in China. I shouldn't wonder, because she's one of their pawns, like Hillary Clinton. And then she'll sit on her money, and she'll counter Benji Greens, and she'll go party with Nancy Pelosi, her bosom buddy, and Elizabeth Warren, and all the other slimy liberals out there. There's no reboot possible. I'm thinking I like political strategy. I like looking at polls. I like looking at current events. I like analyzing news. And as you know, I love making predictions. I've looked this top to fucking bottom. There's no reboot possible. I can't think of a single methodology by which she has a political future, let alone with her campaign currently. Her campaign's dead. She just doesn't realize it yet. It's a zombie campaign. She's just too fucking stupid, apparently, to get the memo. As far as her career, though, I don't think you can reboot hard enough to revive that. If she were to drop today and say, okay, I've looked at my internal polling, use the internal polling thing so you don't have to release it. I don't want to lose in my home state, and, a lot of the things I said about Donald, it's just political theater. You got to understand it's just a campaign. Of course, I'm trying to win, but, you insult your opponents because that's the way politics works. So I'm endorsing him for president. I'm dropping out. I'll be going to campaign for him in South Carolina, etc., etc. That would win some of the MAGA back aboard and say, okay, we tolerate you, Nikkihaley. Is that enough to win an election in your state or federally? No. I don't think so. Joe Biden has it a little bit better because at least he comes within the single digits within matchup polling. Although they're trying to sue RFK Jr. right now for a reason because they realize that widens the gap by a couple of points and benefits Trump. The exact opposite of what some of the black pillars told me would be the case. And I chuckled at them at the time and I warned them. I warned you that RFK Jr. being an independent would not hurt Trump. Some of you are panicking. You can now admit that I was right, by the way. I love hearing that. Just saying, as someone who makes frequent political predictions. Now, there's no bad blood or anything like that, but that was an accurate surmisation of the situation. Nikkihaley can't reboot. The fuck is she going to reboot into? A Senate run or something? She's not going to win office again. She's out of politics. Joe Biden, by the way, he will too if he loses. And he knows this. He wants re-election. He's an egotist. You got to realize, if you listen to him when he was a senator, he's a firebrand. When he talks about corn pop and wrapping chains around people's heads and shit like that, he wants to be the big man with the aviators, greased back hair, the leather jacket, and the Harley. He wants to be the classic 50s greaser. He goes to the diner and he muscles up to corn pop and steals his girlfriend and shit like that. That's what Joe Biden wants, but he can't do it. He's a feeble old man with memory problems. There's no rebooting possible. There's not enough time. Last year, you could have done a 180 and maybe tackled some of the problems, they'd be leading in the polls. But he didn't do that now, did he? Because he's just too fucking incompetent. That's about all. Peace out.